Live on WFLA Now. Feel good and live your best life with Bloom Health Club. Here's Gail Guayardo.
You know, a lot of folks think they can get all the nutrients they need from just their 3 square meals a day, but health experts will say you actually need more. Joining me now is Integrative Nutrition Specialist Sonia Magruder, who helps guide people to fill in all the gaps of life. Sonia, thank you so much for joining the Bloom Health Club.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much, Gail.
So tell me, what led you down this path?
Well, you know, a lot of times people who get into the health and wellness space get there because of a personal health journey or that of a loved one, and that's what happened with me. It's kind of both.
Okay, so what happened?
So it was the beginning of 2013. So, you know, a new year, we start thinking about these things. And what was going on was I was working around 60, 70 hours a week as a real estate broker, stressed, stretched thin. My husband, Doug, he was flipping houses and managing our rental properties. And then we were also caregiving for my mom, who had moved in with us. And she lived with us the last 2 years of her life. And she had health challenges. And so many times when we are caregivers, whether we're taking care of small children or we're taking care of aging parents, a lot of times the last person we take care of is ourselves, right?
Right.
And that's what was happening with both me and my husband. So we just had so much going on, taking care of business, taking care of my mom, all those things. And we found ourselves not feeling good at all. So not only had we put on a lot of weight, but we were literally waking up exhausted, which was a terrible feeling, terrible way to start the day. We had all kinds of digestive issues. We weren't sleeping good. And we felt like we were 20 years older than we were.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I've shared this story a lot, but, you know, both of my parents sadly died a year to the date of one another. And my older brother lives up in New York, so I was the only one down here running from one hospital to the transfusion center to, I mean, this doctor's office to that doctor's office, all while trying to manage a crazy job that woke me up at 1:30 in the morning, 4 kids, a husband, and it all fell flat. And I was the same thing. I was so sick and I was so tired and everything just was like circling the drain in life. And I've realized throughout the journey to feel better, a lot of it comes from food and nutrients. There's a way to make those our building blocks back to better health.
For sure. Food, nutrients, lifestyle, simple things. And because I was so busy, my husband and I, we were doing the same thing. We were going through drive-thrus. We were going all day without eating and then coming home and just devouring whatever crackers, junk was on the counter. And we didn't realize this food was really toxic. It wasn't helping us at all. So finding something that helped us transition and gave us a little bit of structure was like an epiphany. We got on a cleanse, and I found out about it from one of my cousins who's known as the crazy family health nut.
Right.
I thought he was so weird. Now I'm that person. But I saw him posting something on his social media, and I was just like, okay, that's it. And, you know, like I said, it was January, and we were thinking like, okay, here it is, another year. What are we going to do? And it was just life-changing.
All right, I want to bring in our digital reporter and producer for BloomTampaBay.com, Brody Waddell. Brody, you and I both worked and have worked in the industry for quite some time. Me, of course, a lot longer than you. And it is easy to go through phases of our lives where we get crazy and we're just eating what we can eat or whatever is thrown into the newsroom. Has this ever been a challenge of yours?
Oh, all the time, especially like when your work stuff picks up. I find that the biggest things that will throw me off of like my diet and my fitness is like work or like bad things going on in your relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's true. Like, and it's not just like eating to deal with it. It's kind of just like you don't even have the energy or the time to put stuff together. So it can be like extremely difficult.
Yeah.
So that's so true. Convenience is often the rub with people. And that's why people are eating these highly processed foods that we call frankenfoods that are loaded with ingredients that are inflammatory, that have all kinds of bad things in them, which we can get into more. But that's why it's convenience. I used to go through the drive-thru at a fast food place and get a grilled chicken sandwich thinking that was the healthy option because I didn't know any better. And I was running around like crazy with work, caregiving, all those things. So convenience is definitely a factor.
All right. So when people come to you, Sonia, you talked about inflammation. You touched on that a bit. Is there like a common denominator that we all kind of deal with in our journeys as far as that's breaking us down versus building us up?
There are a few.
Okay.
So one of them is not getting quality sleep. That's a big one. And that can really affect our immune system. I mean, we feel terrible when we wake up and we didn't have a good night's sleep or we had disrupted sleep, right? You don't feel good. You don't function like you should. You feel like you kind of hit a wall. So that's one of them. Another one is things that are hidden in the food, in those foods that I mentioned, things that are hidden in there that people may not be aware of. And one of them is glyphosate, which is it's an herbicide. It's a chemical.
Wow. And how common is that in our food sources?
It's super common. So if you are eating processed foods, like boxed foods, things like that, if you look at the ingredients, you're usually going to see ingredients that contain the word corn, soy, canola oil. Those are all sprayed with Roundup typically. If they're not organic, the seeds are called Roundup Ready. They are ready to be sprayed with Roundup.
Yeah, they
and
genetically
the
engineer 'em. I used to work for Monsanto, so I all
No
about
way.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
did?
Oh yeah.
I didn't know this
Wow.
about you. This
Yeah,
is the many
for sure.
layers of Brody. What
Yeah.
did you do?
I mean, I would go out and I worked in like the research thing, and like literally, like we would go out in the fields and we would test different patches of like especially soybeans and corn, and they literally we would go through. I mean, they literally knew how many stalks of corn were in a field, how many soybeans. We went through and we would count them one by one and test them in different like temperate like environments and stuff like that. Pull them out, test them, only breed them certain ways, and then we would take those and sell them and take all that data and figure the stuff out. So they are literally genetically engineering it like on the micro level. And then
Wow.
also, of course, we were walking through fields with lots of Roundup in it. So that was always great. But
yeah.
What is this doing to our health?
So glyphosate, the main chemical in Roundup, weed killer, and it's like Brody said, it's being sprayed on these crops that end up in people's food. What it does, first it was said by the maker that it's not harmful for humans and it can't get into our cells. However, the way it gets in is called the shikimate pathway. And we don't have that in our cells, but we have it in our gut microbiome. That's the pathway in the gut. So it was patented, you probably know this. Initially, it was made as a mineral descaler, and then later it was patented as an antibiotic. So imagine if we are consuming food that has that in it all the time. You know what taking an antibiotic does? It's killing the good bacteria too, our good gut flora. So that's what this, in effect, is doing. And it's disrupting the gut microbiome, that delicate ecosystem of good and bad bacteria. We want to have an abundance of the good bacteria because that's our immune system. 70% of our immune system is in our gut.
So how do we build back better gut health?
So first of all, eliminate those foods. Eat organic as much as possible. Filter your water with a filter that also removes fluoride too. That's
Like
another
reverse
one.
osmosis?
That can, yeah.
Okay.
There's one that I use that I really like. It's just a countertop model, and you just pour tap water into the top of it. But it actually, I saw a test where someone had poured glyphosate into it, and when the water came out, it was 100% free of glyphosate because it gets in the runoff. You know, it gets in the water. It's in the air. It's insidious, so it's impossible to avoid.
So filtrate your water for sure. Start reading labels and get rid of this in as many sources as possible. So that's
Yeah.
going to be the step one to better gut health.
Right. Try to avoid it because it's an assault on the gut. It's been linked to leaky gut and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. You've probably heard about the lawsuits, billion-dollar judgments, multi-billion-dollar judgments, linking it to the cancer and the plaintiffs. So it's super important. This is not something to take lightly. So eating organic as much as possible. And then we want to help to have our good gut bacteria fed. Those are the good guys. We want to feed them. So prebiotic foods, probiotic foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, fermented foods, yogurt, things like that. And then indigestible fiber is the prebiotic that feeds the good gut bacteria. So we're feeding and repopulating with the probiotics and then getting the glyphosate out. We all probably have it in us. I've seen people that have been tested for it. I had a friend who was a doctor specializing in oncology, and his patients, every cancer patient, their glyphosate levels were literally off the chart. So we want to do something to remove it. I personally use something that has been proven to remove it from the body. It's got a binder, and it binds it and flushes it out.
Okay. We typically don't do a ton of name dropping, but a bit of name dropping is not going to hurt too much. There is a line that you have been working with for quite some time. And what is it called?
The whole product line.
Yeah.
The name of the company is Purium.
Purium. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, there are a lot of people, there's a lot of products out there. I know that you are very closely aligned to Purium. As a consumer, you've got to do your research and really get to know the backgrounds of the companies and how this is all sourced, because more and more health experts are going to tell you that you're really not getting all of the nutrients and the supplementation that you need just from your everyday diet. You can try, but unfortunately, the foods that we eat today don't look like the foods that we would eat yesterday, because a lot of them have been processed or altered or changed, and we do our best. But if you're eating out, you never know exactly what you're getting. So talk to me about how you coach people to supplement what they might be deficient in.
So first, I want them to get the glyphosate out, take care of the gut, do that on a daily basis, because we're always going to be exposed. Like you said, when you eat out, it's not like there's a million organic restaurants to choose from, or even a dozen.
It's hard. Even the organic ones, even the high-end ones have told me on the record that it's very difficult for them to source the foods that they want to sell. It's not that they don't want to. It's not that they don't try. I mean, there's movements happening here in the Tampa Bay area where we have a new South Tampa urban aeroponic and hydroponic farm that has grown, that 10 chefs have now invested in. That's where they're getting their foods. But this is not the norm. This is something new and cutting edge that's happening in our area and probably other cities throughout the country. But so you don't know what you're eating when you're eating out, and you don't always know what you're getting at the grocery store.
Right. And, when you're eating out too, like I think we talked about this on one of the segments before, where I don't use the dressing. I don't take the dressing at the restaurant. I'll take the balsamic vinegar or the lemon juice, get some lemon, and then just add a side of avocado and mix it up, because that's healthy fat. Because the oils, even if they say olive oil, often it's cut with canola oil, because it's about the bottom line. They're using ingredients that are going to boost their bottom line more. So it could say olive oil, but it could have canola oil, which we know is sprayed with glyphosate. So trying to avoid it as much as possible. Non-organic bread, wheat, barley, think beer, oats, oatmeal. Yeah. It's used, I'm sure it's used on those as a drying agent, as a desiccant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
so
I used to work in a factory too, so I've seen the chemicals we put on this stuff. Yeah, I've stayed away from that stuff for a long time. It is, to a degree. You have to understand they break a lot of those ingredients down to their molecular level, and then literally put them back together and to make those things. So yeah, I mean, using different syrups and chemicals in order to make things. Even when we would make cookies, it would be some of these ingredients you have no idea what they are, and it was just it's just because at that level of that industrial thing, it's hard to make things without using a lot of those binders and cutting agents and stuff like that. So
Sonia has showed me in the past where she actually has a little mini Tupperware container with a top to it. You just pop it in your purse. She gave me one. I actually keep it in my purse.
A little testing kit.
Yeah. And, when you get out to the restaurant, you can order your salad, but it's your dressing because you know what you're getting.
Yeah. You can put your Italian, I buy organic spices, garlic powder, Italian seasoning, Himalayan salts, and black pepper, whatever you like. And then what you can do is if you get the balsamic, just the vinegar, just pour that in there, stir it up, and just pour it over. They don't care. The restaurants don't care. You're paying the same.
Right.
So it doesn't matter to them. But yeah, eating organic as much as possible, eating whole foods, foods that are an ingredient, like fruit, vegetables. If you're eating animal products, healthy, wild-caught salmon, the best quality.
Right. Yeah. You got to know, you got to source your food, even the foods that you're eating at home. What are some other places that we need to clean up our acts?
So we talked about sleep, and one of the things, we talked a little bit about the pineal gland earlier, and that can get calcified, and that controls our sleep-wake cycle. It's a little tiny gland. It's one of the 9, I believe it's 9 glands in the endocrine system.
And it's in our brains.
It's in our brain. Yeah.
And it's tiny, like a piece of rice.
Yeah, it's like a piece of rice. So it's
Okay.
amazing what it does. And with the lifestyle that we have, most of us, we're on devices all the time. So we're shooting blue light at it all the time. And it can get calcified. So I went to my chiropractor the other day. They're doing a certain type of head and upper cervical scan, the very low, it's like flying on a plane, the radiation amount. But anyway, the chiropractor told me that almost every single person who has done that scan has a calcified pineal gland. And that happens from all those things, devices, stress, fluoride. The St. Pete, the water is fluoridated. I don't know about Tampa. So we want to decalcify it because it's not going to function properly when it's calcified. So that's one thing. And, we talked about some herbs and different things, combination of herbs. We actually have something, if it's okay to say, that does
Is this the lion's mane?
now. Well, the lion's mane is great for the brain,
Okay.
for brain health, focus. And then it's another tincture that actually has a combination of ingredients that can aid in decalcifying.
And
pineal
what's in the
gland.
tincture?
So it's got Haritaki, which is an ancient Ayurvedic herb. That's the one that calms the chatter down and promotes tranquility and all that. But the combination of all four is Haritaki, Irish sea moss. It has turmeric. So we know that's got the compound curcumin, great for inflammation, keeping inflammation at bay. And then Shilajit, which is a really interesting
Sheila
one.
Zeet. That sounds like some
Shilajit.
kind of dancer.
I
or
know,
somebody.
like Sheila E., the
Yeah.
drummer. Yeah. Shilajit is really interesting. It comes from the Himalayan mountains, and it's where organic plant compounds have been in there for a long time, decades probably, hundreds of years. And the pressure from the rocks and the mountains actually kind of composts it, and it oozes like a tar. It's like a tar that oozes out, and it's loaded with minerals, and it's loaded with nutrients and phytochemicals. So it's really good for brain health. It's good for gut health, gut support. It's good just for overall vitality. It's like a super food in a way.
Interesting. So what does a day in the life look for you? I mean, how do you get all of this into your diet and into your daily routine?
That's a great question. So I like to get up and go out. And we're very fortunate, and I'm very grateful. We live not as close to the water as you, but we're a block and a half from a beautiful park. We're in St. Pete. So it's weird because you walk down there when the sun is rising. That confused me for a while because wait a minute, we're on the West Coast, but it's a peninsula. So we like to walk down there, watch the sunrise, because that helps us with our sleep-wake cycle. If we get up and go out in the sun, indirect sun, for 15, 20 minutes in the morning, it'll help us with our sleep.
Okay.
It
I
aids
didn't
in it.
realize that.
Yeah. And there's such simple things like that we can do. Taking a walk, 15-minute walk after you eat, those type of things. Just, things that help our bodies, like the way we're made, help our bodies function better. Movement, even if it's just walking, even if it's just doing chores around the house, just getting some kind of movement, taking the stairs, walking farther, not parking right up close. It's like the people in the blue zones.
Right.
They don't go to a gym, they're gardening, they're doing all kinds of other movement. So those types of things. And then eating, we eat at home mostly. We eat out every once in a while. We like eating out, like the pastime of, going out.
It's an experience.
Yeah, the experience, exactly. So we're picky about where we like to go eat, but we do eat at home most of the time. So we know exactly what's going in our food and eat all organic. And we filter the water, all of those things. Supplement with minerals, supplement with protein, the protein that's got a real high utilization rate. As we get older, we're losing muscle. So it helps to build muscle. It's a protein that was actually made for people with muscle wasting, developed by a doctor. So I take that every day. So there's certain things.
And you mentioned early on that, years ago, back in 2013, when all of this journey started, that you and your husband felt terrible. What is it like today? Fast forward more than a decade later.
We feel younger than our age. And when we did that, when we got on that protocol that we did that kind of opened up this world to us, within a week, 10 days, we felt like different people. Because what we were doing, it's the program I put people on now. What we were doing was eliminating processed foods completely, and then we're flooding our body with nutrient-dense superfoods. And the body responds when you do that. The body is eager to get what it needs and what it can actually recognize, real food.
And when you're giving your body what it needs, you're not so hungry all the time. So it
Yeah.
probably helps with weight management.
Absolutely. Because think about it. When let's say you go eat something or you go somewhere and have an ice cream sundae or what, like empty calories, it's a lot of calories, it's a lot of sugar, a lot of fat, a lot of junk, but there's no nutritional value to it. But when you're eating real food, you're getting the best bang for your buck for the calories. And I have a green superfood shake every single day, at least one a day. The caloric value is very low, but it's so nutrient dense that it keeps me going for hours.
I did want to give one more fun tip that Sonia and I did on Bloom. She's appeared many, many times on our globally syndicated health and wellness show, headquartered in Tampa, Florida. And that is a secret ingredient that you may have seen on a TikTok craze called the Sleepy Girl mocktail, and it helps you sleep at night. And I know that's also part of your line. Tell me about the health benefits of tart cherry.
Oh my gosh, there's sleep clinics that put people on tart cherry juice. So it's first of all, very anti-inflammatory. It's loaded with antioxidants. And tart cherries have naturally occurring melatonin and help our bodies boost its own melatonin naturally. Because what we want at night when we go to sleep, we want the melatonin to go up. We want the cortisol. We need cortisol during the day, but at night we want it to drop down to nothing. And that's what this helps you do. You take it about an hour and a half before bed. The mocktail, the Sleepy Girl mocktail, I also put the ionic elements, which is the ocean trace minerals that I use, and just put a couple dropperfuls of that. It's rich in magnesium. So it's that combo of the
Which
cherry.
also helps you sleep.
Oh, for sure.
And you're doing it just with like a little bit of sparkling water, the cherry juice, and then this extra tincture that you add.
Like a Shirley Temple.
Yeah.
It's really good. Have you ever tried one?
I haven't had one of these tincture drinks now.
It's so good.
Gotta make you one.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to have it.
The ionic elements, the minerals, it kind of blunts the tartness of the cherry, so it's not quite as tart when you put that in there. And then we have a liquid aloe with a dropper. I put an aloe concentrate in there too, because I have also read that aloe can help keep the melatonin in the blood serum longer. So, and aloe is so healthy.
I like it. And it's just, instead of maybe taking melatonin gummies or melatonin that you get at your local drugstore, this is a natural, organic way to find sustainable sleep.
For sure. And this particular one, I mean, I love it because it's the one that I use. I love that it's in a glass bottle. It's concentrated. So it doesn't take up a ton of room in the fridge. It's not this giant bottle. And it's certified organic. So cherries, you always want to make sure cherries are organic, because there's a thing called, you've probably seen it, the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen.
Right. That
comes out every year by EWG, the Environmental Working Group. It's a nonprofit. And cherries are one of the things on there that are the most
could be
highly
dirty.
Yeah.
Very,
highly
very
sprayed.
dirty. Do you have any questions for Sonia?
What suggestions do you have for people that don't just have like a ton of extra money laying around to optimize their diet and sort of getting their nutrients? Like, you can't always buy organic. Maybe they don't have access. They're in a food desert. They just don't have the money for it. Like, what are a few things that like regular folks can do?
So that Clean 15 Dirty Dozen is a good place to start, because the Clean 15, those are fruits and vegetables that you don't necessarily have to get organic. So that's a good guide. They're not really sprayed. Like Brussels sprouts are usually on there. Like those are safe. You could get them non-organic.
Oh, yeah. Kids will love that.
And bananas, they've got a special.
Yeah, they've got thick
I know
skin.
they're probably high in sugar, but still they're protected.
Yeah, and avocados, things like that. So that's a good start. And when you think about it, you got to look at your health as an investment, not an expense. Because what's the long-term effect of being on these terrible processed foods, soda? Soda, it's high fructose corn syrup is the main ingredient. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing beneficial. Eliminate that. That'll be one good. I'm not saying you drink soda, but I'm just saying people that you're asking about that.
Yeah.
So I would like to see people prioritize their health and invest a little more in their health, in what they eat. Because type 2 diabetes, I saw the ravages of that with my mom. My mom was type 2 diabetic. My dad was an immigrant from Greece. My mom's parents were immigrants. So years and years and years ago, I remember like the food we had was good. It was like homemade good food. And then I remember suddenly there were TV dinners and we're eating that. And I remember this transition into processed foods.
And that was the transition into when people got sick.
Yeah.
And, same thing with my family. I grew up in a very Italian family, and food sourcing was very important to my Nana Katie. And it meant everything to her. What she put on the table was like, she thought of food as medicine, which we should all embrace that thought process again. And then sadly, both of my parents passed away from cancer, even though cancer is not prevalent in our family. And I think a lot of it is because they both worked a lot and they were eating out and they were picking up food. And it's like a runaway train. You start to lose your sourcing. And at the end of the day, and I've learned this on Bloom from all of the incredible chefs that come on the show, cooking is not as intimidating as you think it is. And that's the first way I think that you could save a lot of money and invest in your health, farmers markets, and just sourcing your meats properly and
not eating out.
Right.
I mean, this is kind of mind blowing. A friend of mine, she's a doctor of Oriental medicine, acupuncturist, and she did this comparison, and it was a couple of the fast food chains what a meal costs now, $12, $13 for a meal,
It's
a
not even
lunch.
affordable anymore.
Right.
That
So
was the whole point.
those are expensive. Now,
Yeah.
the program I get people on, it can actually replace 2 meals a day. It's all whole food. It's a superfood shake and the protein and gut support and all of that. It comes out to $6 a meal.
Nice.
That's like half of what people are paying for a fast food meal that is not doing them any good at all, and that is leading to these lifestyle diseases.
So invest in your health. Any other questions, Brody, before we wrap
I don't
up?
think so. Unless you have any advice for getting like your stubborn like family members that don't like, you watch your parents or your grandfolks like start to just waste away and they just joke about it. Oh, I'm getting old. I'm aging terribly. Like, okay, like what can you say to those sorts of people, would you say?
Lead by example.
Yeah.
Let them see what you're doing. Maybe bring a dish over that's something delicious and really healthy for them, and meet them where they're at. We don't want to have people feel like we're badgering or shaming them, but also let them know that you care. And by leading by example, I think is the best way. Because my husband, he was not on board with all this in the beginning, and then he suddenly was.
Right.
And he's like, oh, I feel great.
Yeah.
When somebody, it's really motivated. When people start doing these things, also managing stress, things like that, breathing, when they start feeling better by putting real food in their body, it's very motivating.
Yeah.
And that motivation becomes stronger than that desire to eat that junk food. And they also lose the cravings for those things. Because you said you worked in a factory, and these frankenfoods are made in a lab designed to become addictive, to hit certain brain receptors. But once we start eating real food, that's what we start craving.
Yeah.
I think we should do an entire podcast on you, Brody, about all these
know.
different
Apparently,
jobs.
there's
So
always something new.
interesting.
Your time in Mexico,
I've been
your time
around,
working in weird chemical plants.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Hey, Sonia, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wealth of knowledge, and we really appreciate you.
Thank you, Gail. Loved it. It's always so fun being with you, talking about health.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Until next time.
Thank you.